If we are new to long-distance backpacking and we need a flashlight or a headlamp, we might go shopping online. If we do, we will find dozens upon dozens of lights and headlamps to choose from. We might wonder if all of them are as good as the next, or if we could have a problem later if we make the wrong choice. If we do have a problem later, it would not be the first time. Over the years, no type of outdoor gear has given me as many problems as flashlights and headlamps. I have had to hit them to get them to work. I have had them break on me. I have had them fall apart in my pack, and sometimes they go dead on me and new batteries won't save them. Some of these lights were cheap and inexpensive and some were not. So, what's my problem? Am I just an electric light klutz, or could this happen to anybody? I hiked with one guy who said he got by just fine with a little LED keychain light that looked just like this. This was true because he was going to have his tent set up and be ready for bed well before dark. He wasn't going to start moving in the morning until sunrise. His light didn't get a lot of use. By comparison, I have told earlier how I felt compelled to take the extreme step of constructing my own tents because I spent a lot of time in environments a little more extreme than average. And on those trips, my electric lights went with me. I have been out for as long as 3 weeks at a stretch with no plan to visit a store, motel, or hostel during that time. Most of these were hunting trips, which meant I was up and moving in the dark 2 hours before sunrise and well after sunset. I would be moving through hilly and/or wooded terrain. I discovered I was forced to put a high priority on durability and reliability, which I'll discuss later on. As I have said before, I have section hiked on the Appalachian Trail, and on the AT I haven't spent much time in stores, motels, or hostels. Those who do can buy batteries or recharge lights and reduce the chance of problems. But, like I said, sometimes batteries aren't the problem. Another question is, how afraid of the woods are we when it's pitch black outside? I'm sure that you and I are totally fearless, right? Well, not everyone is. Some people are definitely worried by the idea that wild animals and maybe bad guys are running around in the woods. Even if we are fearless, we can still hear some pretty strange racket at night that can make us ask, what in the hell was that? When a large tree falls down an Appalachian Trail mountainside in the middle of the night, and I have heard one do it, it is an enormous crash that thunders across the hills. It's hard to imagine a train wreck could sound much worse. Another thing I've heard is when a falling tree or big branch will make a few starts and stops before they hit the ground, with the racket lasting 10 seconds or more. This can provide a nice soundtrack if we are imagining a large hairy monster is tearing down the trees to get us. And not all monsters are huge. Do you by any chance know what a fox sounds like when it's howling? I've put a link in the description so you can give one a listen. If we hear one at night and don't know what it is, we might imagine it's an alien or a velociraptor or who knows what. While they have been in the eastern United States for decades, I have noticed that in recent years, coyotes are starting to make more and more noise in the east. Even they can sound pretty creepy if we don't know what they are. And of course, we have bears. As I speak in May 2016, officials in Great Smoky Mountains National Park destroyed a bear they believe bit a hiker as the man was inside his tent. As I have said, I've had a bear right outside my tent along the AT. If we hike on the AT, we must accept the possibility a bear will walk up to us in the dark. And if it does, let's hope we can stand our share of the adventure. No one is going to drive up and rescue us if we lose our nerve. At least not until the bear is long gone, and even then, maybe. And to top it all off, if there is dead vegetation on the ground, a deer or a black bear can sound very much like a walking man as they stomp through the woods in the night, even if they don't come very close. So what do all these stories of bumps in the night have to do with electric lights? The answer, I believe, is lumens. To oversimplify a little bit, a lumen is a way to measure how bright an electric light is. Many flashlight and headlamp manufacturers will tell us how many lumens their lights produce. A light that produces 300 or 500 or 1000 lumens is going to cast a very bright light into the woods, the kind of light we might want if we're checking out some weird noise in the middle of the night. A high lumen light, however, has a downside. It's going to drain its batteries relatively quickly. This chart shows the lumen output of 2 sample lights being sold in 2016. Also listed is the amount of time it takes to run the battery dead with a light running at that brightness. We'll look at some specific lights in a minute. Among manufacturers, there is a wide variation of runtime or battery life as it relates to lumen output, but higher lumens consistently reduce runtime on average. This is true among lights powered by both alkaline or lithium batteries. Some lights produce more than 1,000 lumen, cost more than $100, use multiple lithium batteries, and weigh more than a pound. If we believe we really need these, there are plenty of types for sale. But some of these models promise no more than 2 hours of battery life at the highest setting, regardless of the battery type used. If we get above 5,000 lumen, runtime can drop to 1.5 hours. Another detail is some manufacturers will not tell us the runtime or battery life of their products, and those are lights that I would avoid. One thing that can help us is that many lights allow us to choose between 2 or more different lumen outputs. This means different brightness and different battery life for the different settings. We can extend battery life if we use the lower settings most frequently and the brighter ones only when needed. As I will explain later, a light with modest lumen output can run non-stop for more than 2 days and have more battery life left. As I've said, we can reduce the implications of these issues if we recharge our lights every few days or carry extra batteries. But there is a larger issue, and in fact, the big issue. And that is, if we plan to spend weeks in the wilderness, we must pay some kind of attention to these details to avoid potential trouble. We will have an advantage if we discuss here the issues and choices involved. Some long-distance backpackers will use their lights as hard as I have. Many will hike at night on the Appalachian Trail where there are plenty of rocks and roots to trip over in the dark. Some Pacific Crest trail hikers will tell us they hike throughout the night to avoid the desert heat at the trail's southern end. Even if we only hike during the day on the AT, we might find ourselves waking up at 3 a.m. with an impending diarrhea attack in a crowded shelter. In all of these scenarios, we need a light that will not fail us. Let's look at a couple of lights that are modern options for 2016. This is a Vitchello V800 Plus LED headlamp. In mid-May 2016, it's about $43 on Amazon. The link's in the description. Here are the manufacturer's numbers on lumens and runtime or battery life. Also included is what the manufacturer calls the effective ranges of the different lumen settings. At its brightest setting, it will shine a 168 lumen beam 90 meters and run 30 hours at that setting until the 3 AAA batteries die. But the light is adjustable, and we can turn that light down as low as 4 lumens. Then we would get a range of 2 to 7 meters. For me, that is bright enough for walking around in the dark if I don't move too fast. And I say that because I have used the lights that week in the middle of nowhere. At that setting, the batteries would last 125 hours. While the numbers will vary, many lights are sold these days that give us a wide range of lumens and runtime. The runtimes on this light are long enough to satisfy the demands of most of those long trips I've been on. We might wonder, if we run this thing non-stop at 168 lumens, will it last that 30 hours? If it does, it won't be very bright at that setting. I ran this one for 12 hours at its brightest setting, and the output fell from the listed 168 lumens to a level I would estimate at 15 to 20 lumens. Then I shut it off and waited a couple of hours. After that, the white light would shut itself off seconds after I turned it on. It took a change of batteries to bring it back to normal. I have read some manufacturers use a regulator to maintain brightness level as batteries lose power. But if we want visible evidence that batteries are fading as an advance warning to exercise conservation, we might not appreciate such a feature. Lights like this with different brightness modes have big advantages, but there is a price to be paid. With many lights like this, we have to move through some switching sequence to activate different lumen outputs. We as individuals will have to decide what we can put up with regarding switching inconvenience. If we are having that 3 a.m. AT shelter diarrhea attack, we will be very unhappy if we have to spend 10 seconds fumbling with a light switch. The directions for switching through this light's modes requires a detailed explanation. So I wrote it down and you can pause to read it if you like. I will say I like the red light a lot. Using a red light will not destroy our night vision that can take 5 or more minutes to develop. Compared to a white light, a red light won't make others scold me if I accidentally flash it in their faces. This can be a big advantage on the AT. I also have used a red light beam to sneak around in the dark in proximity to game animals that I don't want to disturb. This strategy has succeeded when the animals were upwind. I also like that the red light has a separate on-off switch. Whether the light is off or has a white beam burning, it will instantly switch to red when I hit the red button. The next immediate question is, can the Vitchello survive the kind of abuse I give to lights? This was my favorite outdoor light until I broke it. It's an old Petzeltica headlamp. It had been used a lot before it broke. For example, the elastic headband was getting pretty stretched out. I lifted a plastic tab to change the batteries and it broke on the opposite side of the housing. As you can see from this photo, I tried to super glue it back together as I wiped away my tears of grief. Well, it did not work. I replaced it with another Petzl that has given me no trouble. I have had this Maglite for so long I can't even remember when I bought it, and it still works. It uses an incandescent bulb and was state of the art when it first came out. I liked it so much I got another one just like it, and the second one died on me almost immediately. Replacing the batteries and bulb could not save it. I mention this because any manufacturer can produce a lemon or a dud that will let us down. There is an element of risk, even with reputable products. It would be a good plan to hang on to the receipt and to use the light in advance of a trip to make sure. I would say the Vitchello is a reasonably safe bet for durability in my hands. Its plastic walls are thicker than those on the Petzl that broke. Its headband is wider. The catch that opens the battery compartment uses a wire hinge, making it less likely to break than a plastic catch. The new Petzl is also more sturdy than the old one, but the Vitchello is heavier, 4 ounces versus 3 ounces when loaded with batteries. I have dropped the Vitchello on a hard floor with no ill effects. While headlamps have serious advantages for backpackers, some people find them uncomfortable and don't like them. Which brings us to flashlights. Even if we love headlamps, it might be a good plan to carry a spare flashlight. For many years I have carried a spare, and for most of that time it was this. It's a Maglite Solitaire with an incandescent bulb using a single AAA battery. It weighs 1¼ ounces, and over the years most of the blue coating has rubbed off. The new ones are rated at 2 lumen with a runtime of over 3.5 hours, and an LED version is available. We should talk for a second about absolute pitch black darkness. Because of light pollution, that kind of darkness is getting harder to find, but in some wilderness areas it still exists. If you have experienced it on a clear moonless night, you could have looked up and seen the Milky Way shining with a brilliance many people will never see firsthand. In the moonlight or in the haze that shines all night near civilization, 25 lumens might not seem like much. If we're on a farm or in town, anything less than 100 lumens might seem almost useless. But in pitch darkness, 2 lumens is a real light, and it is far better than nothing. Even so, if we have money in 2016, we can get something more capable. This is a Thrunite Archer 1A V3. It uses a single AA battery and weighs about 2.5 ounces. In May 2016, it cost about $36. The link's in the description. Compared to the Vitchello, the Thrunite is brighter with less battery power, a shorter runtime, and no red light. But the Thrunite has an aluminum body that's quite unlikely to break. The Thrunite remembers the last setting we used, and that's the setting we'll have when we turn it back on. The Thrunite uses a separate switch to cycle through the different modes. If we want to use low mode all the time, there will be no fumbling when we turn it back on. And if the light is burning at any mode, we can activate the strobe by holding down the mode switch. Thrunite also makes the point this light should not run at its highest setting for more than 10 minutes at a time to protect the battery, driver, and LED. Whether this is true of other lights, I cannot say, but at least Thrunite gives us a warning. The main Thrunite switch is a push button on the end cap. There's a rubber cover over the switch, and Thrunite gives us a spare. If we do a YouTube search, we'll find directions on how to replace that rubber cap. Overall, I find the Thrunite very easy to use. Every light I have discussed so far is highly unlikely to turn on accidentally in my pocket or pack. The Vitchello has a lockout feature, but I see no need for me to use it. Each light is also water resistant, but the Thrunite is the only one that claims to withstand being 2 meters underwater. On those long remote wilderness trips I mentioned, I want more than mere reliability in a light. I want one that basically cannot be broken no matter what and will not fail. For that reason, my go-to spare flashlight for the past 6 years has been a Gerber Recon. I like the first one I got so much that I bought 3 more of them. The Recon is not designed to be completely waterproof, but otherwise I would call it the most nearly indestructible light I've ever had. It's rated at 3 lumens, and I can tell you I have run one continuously for 60 hours, that's 2.5 days, and I'd say it was still putting out close to at least 1.5 lumens, good for about 10 yards in pitch darkness. It runs on a single AA battery and is similar to a mag light. My mag lights turn on by rotating the front end counterclockwise. The Recon is turned on by rotating the tail clockwise. I position the pocket clip so it's resting on the turning tail, so I've never had it turn on accidentally. We can rotate the front to select 4 colored lenses. I've only used white and red. I've been within 30 yards of a white-tailed deer with the red lens burning, yet I remained undetected. I would not call this a light designed for the backyard or for the overnight campout. Instead, this is a light for when failure is not an option. If we buy cheap lights, which I have done repeatedly, some of them will turn themselves on in my pocket or pack, or become disassembled, or be very difficult to open for a battery change. Each of the ones shown here has at least one of those problems. On the other hand, these 2 have performed quite reliably. The screen of the average cell phone will produce about 3/4 of a lumen or more, and a lot of folks have found out they can use that as a light in a pinch. And of course, I have used candles in my floorless tent, which is what we see here. We can expect our flashlight or headlamp to fail if the batteries leak. In my experience, this has happened if the light is stored in a warm environment for a long time without being used. Lights stored in a cool place have given me no trouble. Removing batteries from the light in storage is another option. I could have bought some other lights for this video, like a black diamond headlamp, or a Phoenix or Innova flashlight if I had the spare money, but I don't. In an earlier video, I told how my ability to hike has been badly affected by being in an 80-mile-an-hour head-on car accident. As I speak, I have had medical treatments to address this, and I have one big surgery left to go. The upside is, if all this works, I can section hike again. The downside is I must spend a lot of money even though I have insurance. I'm sure I'll get it all paid for, but I'm watching my money. Vitchello and Thrunite gave me the lights for these tests. In fact, they've given away lights to many YouTubers. If you're interested, you can find other videos about these specific models without looking too hard. I accepted their offer because electric lights are one type of gear I feel compelled to talk about in this kind of detail. And I had no lights that were this fancy. I have no immediate plans to review anything else. I have been offered other gear to review by other manufacturers. I know that companies need to sell stuff so they can make money, but gear by itself doesn't get me that excited. With most pieces of gear, the main issues are what can we put up with when it comes to gear, and how do we use that gear most effectively. I've talked about that before more than once. And now it's getting high time for us to be done. A huge thank you goes out to my subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, it would be much appreciated. And as always, thanks a million for watching.